Good evening and welcome to Real America's Voice and Just the News' special election coverage of the presidential election of 2020, Our Republic at Risk. We are honored now to be joined by Mayor Rudy Giuliani. You have seen him out there fighting for the president, representing the Trump campaign. He joins us now. Mr. Mayor, honored to have you on, sir.
Very nice to be on with you.
So, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that a lot of our viewers have asked about is particularly this Dominion voting software. This was the software that was used in Michigan, and in Antrim County, they had Joe Biden up by thousands of votes. They claimed there was a software glitch. It was discovered, it was fixed, and then it turned out that President Trump was actually up by thousands of votes. We know that you and your team have been investigating this. At the present time, do you have any whistleblowers inside Dominion who you're speaking with?
Well, I wouldn't call them whistleblowers. We have a person who's come forward with an affidavit inside of Dominion that has said that Dominion observed the 100,000 phony ballots that were brought in at 4 o'clock in the morning on November 5th that were all Biden ballots that appeared by every measure to be phony ballots since they were brought in the back door. They were not in the proper containers. They were sticking out of the paper bags and cardboard boxes. And they were told that these were ballots that were needed to catch up to Trump because Trump was too far ahead. When they were counted, they were all counted in favor of Biden. The woman who has given us an affidavit, who worked for Dominion, said that she saw not a single Trump vote. She was there for 4 or 5 hours. And it appeared to her to be horribly corrupt. And when she reported it, nothing was done about it. She was told it wasn't any of their business. So that's not a whistleblower. That's a witness on the record in our lawsuit in Michigan, which is why I feel pretty good about the lawsuit. There's a 100,000 vote fraud. Do we have other witnesses for that are somewhat reluctant to come forward right now? Yes. We can probably corroborate that 3 or 4 times. Wow. So I think they're finished on that. I think that's something that actually happened. They brought 100,000 votes in. They were all Biden votes. There was not even a vote for another Democrat. And it was intended because they were panicked because Trump was ahead by much more than they anticipated. Same thing happened in Pennsylvania. They never anticipated Trump being ahead by 800,000 votes. It's inherently impossible to make up 800,000 votes at 64% of the vote. You have to cheat to do it. Now, we're talking about Philadelphia. Philadelphia has cheated in every election for the last 60 years. Philadelphia has more people that have gone to prison for election fraud than any city probably in the country. And it's all Democratic election fraud because it's been controlled by a corrupt Democratic machine for 60 years. So when they fell behind by 800,000 votes, they went into a state of panic. And then they had to shut out all the Republicans. They had to bring in all the phony ballots. And we never got to examine over 600,000 ballots, which makes them all unlawful. Illegal, unlawful, fraudulent. I doubt that the court will allow them to count those ballots. I'm sure the state legislature will not accept those ballots in order to certify electoral votes. And really, only, I think, Axios has been smart enough to take Pennsylvania down as a Biden state. And Pennsylvania is not going to be a Biden state.
And Mr. Mayor, if you would, could you give our viewers a sense? They've been following the updates, day after day. Give us a sense, if you would, please, for the current state of play, the most important legal actions that are happening right now in these battleground states around the country, please.
Well, I really feel bad that I have to do that because this information is being denied them by the mass media. I mean, it's being censored, it's not being given to them. And then we hear people say there's no evidence of fraud. We have 1,000 ballots demonstrating the worst kind of fraud you ever heard of.
Yes.
And the media is just lying about it in their absolutely anti-American and pathetic effort to elect a criminal as president of the United States. I've never seen this before. But here's the reality. The most important 2 cases right now are Pennsylvania and Michigan, because if you read those cases and you read the affidavits in the cases, it's going to give you a picture that there really is powerful evidence that they stole the election in Pennsylvania and Michigan. Trump was ahead by 800,000 when we went to sleep. They counted votes all night. They were coming out of the woodwork. They were being made up. They were being written up. And they got him into a more competitive position. In Michigan, they actually brought in phony ballots, 100,000 of them. They thought all the Republicans were gone. The mistake they made is some of the independent contractors were there, and they hadn't bought the souls of the independent contractors, who were so shocked by it that they reported her. Also in Michigan, a city Democratic worker was so shocked that she's come over to us and told us the whole story about how they were preparing to cheat going back to September, how they knew they'd have to make up a lot of numbers, the plans they had, the backup plans they had to get more phony ballots in. I mean, because the general media doesn't report this, the American people are going to be exceedingly surprised when some of these states are taken down and end up being Trump states.
Well, we've certainly seen the mainstream media almost just willfully ignoring and suppressing a lot of these stories. There is evidence. As you know, the team here at Just the News and Real America's Voice has assembled a team of 30 investigators who are out there every day working to track down all of these election irregularities. Mr. Mayor, another question for you. Have you had any contact with anyone in the U.S. intelligence community about any of these election irregularities?
I don't think I can comment on that. There is no question. Another aspect of this is, was the vote interfered with from the point of view of the computers that were used? And does Dominion figure very big in that situation, given the fact that it uses Chinese software and has a rather checkered history?
Roger. And Mr. Mayor, as we stand right now, you know, a lot of Americans, a lot of our viewers are kind of asking us what they think the most likely timeline is on this. Do you think, sir, that these cases end up in the Supreme Court? And if so, do you have any sense for when they might end up there?
They may or may not end up in the Supreme Court. The actual place they belong are in the state legislatures. The state legislatures, under the Constitution of the United States, govern the election of senators, representatives, and the president. It's called the Election Clause and the Electors Clause. So the real arbiter of this will be the state legislature that has to determine, are these unlawful votes going to be counted, which would be terrible, and it would defy the law of their state. I guess if they did that, we would take it to the Supreme Court. But in the first instance, it would be the decision of the state legislature. Right. And I can't imagine they won't do the right thing, because these votes are blatantly false, unlawful, manufactured. And when they say there's no evidence of fraud, I've never seen an election case with half this evidence of fraud.
Well, we also have a number of witnesses who've come forward. If you would, please give our viewers an update on where things stand with Richard Hopkins. This is the Pennsylvania postal worker who came out, who said that he overheard a supervisor telling people to illegally backdate ballots. Then the mainstream media came out with a number of false stories saying that he had recanted his story. And he came out publicly and he said, no, I meant exactly what I said. Where does that stand today?
Well, this is a media sideshow. His testimony gives flavor, but it isn't critical, because the 683 ballots that were unlawful are established in a totally different way, in a completely uncontroversial way. But in any event, he kind of gave evidence of the kind of fraud that was going on all throughout Pennsylvania, which was a disaster. And his backdating of documents is corroborated by inside witnesses, about 10 of whom were told to do the same thing. So he's got a lot of colleagues who support what he was saying. What happened to him is intolerable. The Postal Service, playing Biden defender, sent some out-of-control postal agent named Schmedlap to see him. And Schmedlap actually is tape recorded, because he doesn't know that the gentleman was wearing a recording device. And you can listen to that tape recording if you want. And what you see is Schmidlap is trying very, very hard to frighten and threaten him.
Yes.
He tells him, I'm going to make you scared.
Yeah.
He says there are a lot of senators who are depending on you changing this. He tells him, I'm going to be very unhappy if you don't. Virtually threatens him with his job. Now, what's this guy doing?
Yes.
Who's he doing it for?
Well,
What is his concern about what he said about? I mean, after all, what he said, the postal worker said.
Mr. Mayor, I know we're going to have to take a break here, sir. But we will make sure that we continue to check in with you and the entire Trump team on every one of these developments as we move forward. You bet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.